It is 1964. Only a few months ago, a brainwashed James Bond tried to kill M, the head of the Secret Service, before redeeming himself with the successful assassination of professional hitman Francisco Scaramanga, the man with the golden gun. But, with a plot being hatched right at the top of Russian intelligence, Bond's first failure becomes an opportunity, and he must now go back into the lion's den to Colonel Boris, the man who turned him against his former masters, to find out the source of the threat before it is too late, and before the Colonel and Dr. Katya Leonova can break him again. Sequels require a tricky balance. On the one hand, you need to make the reader feel like he's getting more of the same, while at the same time getting something new. Bond continuation novels are a testament to how difficult this is. Until recently, many just combined the author's natural inclinations with the Bond name and the influence of the films, updating the setting to whatever was contemporary, adding in gadgets, and leaving much of Fleming behind. This changed in the last 2 decades, appropriately in the main series with the full-on Fleming pastiche, though it was preempted in spin-offs. Only one Bond novel since hasn't taken place in the Fleming timeline. But with Bond, a sequel has an added wrinkle: the state in which Fleming left him. At the time of Fleming's death in 1964, Bond had sunk into a depression following his wife's death, almost lost his job, developed amnesia, been brainwashed by the Russians, and had tried to murder his old boss M before being sent on a suicide mission to either redeem himself or remove himself from the equation. While he is ostensibly redeemed by his success at the end of The Man with the Golden Gun, this has never really rung true for many fans. Firstly, Bond has simply been through too much, and a pat on the back for a job well done isn't going to fix someone who is at this point very damaged. Secondly, the job well done isn't very well done. Fleming was a sick man when he wrote The Man with the Golden Gun, and the published book was an early draft he was dissatisfied with and planning to revise. It is also somewhat of a missed opportunity. It starts out very strong, with Bond's infiltration of SIS and failed assassination of M, but soon loses steam, due to a subpar villain and sketched-out plot. The state of Bond at the end of the original series is something previous authors have shied away from. With only 2 exceptions, most have ignored it completely. And the 2 exceptions are the Moneypenny Diaries, in which it is, by definition, a subplot around an important secondary character, and Sebastian Faulks in Devil May Care, who had Bond rehabilitated, to quote Faulks, by the start of the adventure after only a few private worries he had shared with the reader. As such, I was delighted to hear Anthony Horowitz was planning to write a true sequel to The Man with the Golden Gun, one which picked up on all of its best dropped threads, such as the return of the Cold War in the main narrative, the assassination plot, Colonel Boris, Bond's questioned allegiance, and built on them. On top of that, Anthony Horowitz had already written 2 of the top 3 continuation novels already, and his natural talent and love of the source material had proved a winning mix, so all of this sounded very promising. But then Horowitz has always been steeped in Fleming, even more than renowned fans Kingsley Amis and Raymond Benson. Both of Horowitz's previous books have used unpublished Fleming material, treatments for a never-made James Bond TV show for a chapter or 2. While Horowitz was unable to work a third into this novel, Fleming still shines through. We have a chapter named after an unused title for Moonraker, a description of Berlin taken from Thrilling Cities, a main villain who is featured in 2 previous Fleming books, and an entire plot built around giving Bond the send-off many of us wished Fleming had been able to. In fact, this book contains an unused Fleming plot without knowing it, as one sequence mirrors a plot idea Fleming jotted down in a notebook before his death, which Horowitz didn't even know about. Unlike Faulks, who, despite writing one of the better Bond continuation novels, felt like he had a checklist to complete, including a villain with a deformity, a game between him and Bond, an obstacle course, a new foreign country, this book feels like an organic progression. It moves logically from where we left Bond, using historical research to craft a book that is more interested in being an effective Cold War thriller than it is in trying to guess what the reader expects. For all his faults, Fleming tried to write characters, love stories, places, and danger, more than he did set pieces, holiday destinations, or bikini models. Horowitz knows this, and has used Fleming's characters and world to tell his own story, one which works because we believe in the characters and situation, at least in the moment. It isn't perfect. In fact, the worst thing about this book is the title, so it just goes to show you should never trust a book by its cover, and the nod to the man who knew too much is questionable, though not deal-breaking, and the villain is perfectly functional without scaling the heights of memorability that Fleming's could. Overall, I cannot say I'm sure whether it replaced another of the author's works on the top 3 Bond continuation podium, but it still makes his trilogy for the character a home run. The leading lady is a perfect Flemingian foil for Bond, and the plot and set pieces exciting while working within the parameters of a Cold War thriller, albeit a Bond one. Horowitz successfully fuses the Fleming style with his own gift for plot, giving the Fleming fan everything he could want, and not just in the expected ways. It may even have the power to captivate thriller fans outside the Bond community, who might be tempted by the author's name or the story's Cold War setting. Just don't go in expecting the films to have told you everything you need. Now, I have been careful to keep this review spoiler-free, however, there is one thing I feel like we should talk about, but it is a spoiler for the ending, so if you're planning on reading this, maybe click the video off right now and come back later. Right. Is it just us? Okay then. So, a week or so before the book came out, headlines started appearing, saying things such as, Bond author condemns Bond's death in No Time to Die, or Bond author says Bond should never die. This was quickly leapt upon by the headline jumpers, and many Bond forums were inundated with comments saying how right he was, and repeating their own opinions that killing off James Bond at the end of No Time to Die was a terrible thing that should never have happened, and that Anthony Horowitz obviously agreed with them. And in truth, while these comments showed that these headline jumpers had obviously not actually read the article in which Anthony Horowitz actually said that he had himself considered killing Bond in his book before deciding that no one had the right to, it became even funnier once I'd actually read the book, which, to avoid going into too much detail, leaves Bond in about as much of a precarious situation as Fleming did at the end of the novel From Russia with Love. I am personally fine with this ending. When the first rumours of Bond dying in No Time to Die appeared, I wasn't convinced. I didn't want to see Bond going out in a blaze of glory, as that just seemed very self-indulgent. Being prepared for it, I was actually surprised at how okay I was with it in the finished film, but I remain unconvinced that Bond dying is the best ending to his story. Not because I think Bond is immortal, or that Bond should never die, but simply because I just don't think it's the most interesting end for that character due to his personal demons. As such, I think Anthony Horowitz's open ending is a very good balance between those two positions, allowing you to put down the book either feeling like you have organically ended the Bond series, or if you're unhappy with that, feeling like this is just an open ending that one could ignore before moving on to the next chronological Bond continuation novel, which I believe in this case would be Colonel Sun, written about 50 years earlier. But I'm sure this will still be controversial, so feel free to let me know your thoughts on the ending and the book as a whole in the comments. I just had to mention the ending, just because of how funny it is. After all, those No Time to Die haters leapt to agree with Anthony Horowitz, who has basically done the exact same thing, except that they didn't read the book and didn't even read the article beyond the headline. Goodbye.